Hey, it's Ukallii, welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about chapter 15 of my Harry Potter rewrite fanfiction. So there's nothing new in chapter 15 from the previous version. So if you read the previous version, everything in this chapter is completely from that chapter, from that version. It's just been reordered just a little tiny bit, because this is occurring later than it previously had. This is the first chapter that's set in October. In the previous version, it was this chapter, and then they went off to Hogwarts, and that was kind of it. That is no longer the case. There are two new chapters that directly follow this. What I had in mind when I wrote this chapter originally was that this was going to be kind of a lighthearted chapter showing that Ron and Harry are established friends now, and then they go off to Hogwarts, because I always thought it was weird that Harry clung to Ron so quickly after going to Hogwarts. It just seemed a little odd. Someone who's never had friends before just is really good at it out of nowhere. So I wanted to give them a little bit more room to become acquainted. I also really liked the idea, I've seen this in a few fan fictions and fan arts, of Ron having a crush on Harry whenever they're younger, and then getting over it as they get older, as he, just gets to know Harry and stops seeing him quite so much as an enigma. So he has a bit of a crush on Harry. It's not going to go anywhere. I wrote a fanfiction once where in the second book, Harry entrusts Ron with his first kiss because someone tried to kiss him and he didn't like the idea of his first kiss not being taken on his own terms. I don't know if I'm going to use that. Let me know in the comments if you like that idea. I don't know. Even if I did something like that, it would happen in the second book. It wouldn't happen in this book, so just let me know what you think about that. A bit about what the Weasleys are doing in Druid's Grove and in this area, in Shehu and whatnot. They're doing renovations on the old Pruitt estate, which was Molly's family's home. Molly didn't live there because she grew up after Grindelwald had destroyed the village, but this is her family estate, and she wants to kind of bring it back so that they can stay there during the school year. So there's a bit about kind of what the houses look like. The basis for how I determined what the houses would look like in Druid's Grove is based on the old Celtic roundhouse idea, but old Celtic roundhouses were very, very common around the older ruins in England, and you can still find examples of them today. They are really good for insulation because they tend to be kind of a little bit subterranean, so they contain cold very well and heat very well, so they're great. They have natural air conditioning basically. I like the idea of the magical community holding on to something that's traditional like this and having these kind of roundhouses, so that's what the houses look like. They probably would have done this earlier if there had been an impetus to go to Druid's Grove earlier, but with Harry there reviving the Potter estate, there's kind of now an impetus for the old Druid's Grove families to come back and reclaim what was theirs, and so that's what they're doing all summer. They don't quite finish it over the course of the summer, but Molly and Arthur and the people who aren't at Hogwarts do go up on weekends through the course of the first year to go continue working on the house so that it's ready by the following summer. There's a little bit here about the press, about what's been going on kind of from Ron's perspective as someone on the outside of Harry's circle, talking about what's been going on ever since Harry arrived 6 weeks, even 6 weeks after he arrived. There were still articles being posted about him, there was a running article in the magazine, but the first person who was writing about Harry was Rita Skeeter. And as we know from the books, Rita Skeeter is not a reliable source, so everything she was posting was scandalous bullshit. For example, Draco mentions before that, in the previous chapters in Diagon Alley arc, that there was a rumor that Harry had eloped with Rose. That was Rita Skeeter's doing. But Remus had a word with the Daily Prophet editor, basically threatening him, and changed the authors. And so now, instead of Rita Skeeter, the articles are being written by Marlene McKenzie, who's who's living in Shehu. So she's a local who's just giving kind of basic updates about what Harry's doing. So it's a much more reliable source. It's someone who is actually within observable distance of Harry, talking about him and talking about what's going on. And she kind of gives an overview of what his daily life is like. Harry is kind of shy about it when Ron asks. He's just like, I'm just doing lessons. But Marlene McKenzie, as a reporter, is reporting what he's actually doing. He's learning about all of these different topics. She gives an overview of the things that he's being taught in his lessons: horseback riding, martial arts, healing, history, language, mythology, music, fashion, food, culture, art, math, sciences, swimming, horticulture, husbandry, herbology, potion making. It just goes on. He's learning all of this stuff. But Harry just kind of looks at all of it as catching up. He doesn't really recognize that, it's quite remarkable that he's being taught all of this stuff in such a short period of time. Of course, the lessons are not going to finish by the time he goes to Hogwarts. But Remus and Zhu Shifu are working hard to try to get him to a level where he's at least on the same grounds as the other pureblood kids. It's also revealed that, unlike with Draco, Harry actually told Ron about what his life in Ireland was like. Not to the full extent. He didn't tell Ron about the abuse that he suffered, but he did tell Ron that he was a servant in Ireland. This is something Ron knows that Draco doesn't, which just shows how comfortable Harry is with Ron, who he feels is more like on level grounds with, than Draco, who he feels like he has to kind of pretend to be like. And that's going to play a really important part in their friendships going forward, about the friendships between Harry and Ron versus Harry and Draco, and how those two are going to end up in competition as the story goes on. And it's kind of already started. You start to see it already. You're going to get more of that as the story goes on, though. The next bit of dialogue is a scene of Harry and Ron hiding up by the water wheel in the Lee estate, watching Draco basically tease the girls, Elizabeth and Zhang, who are still courting Harry despite everyone's attempts to throw them off, everyone's attempts to be like, stop, give up. They're still at it, which prompts Harry at the end of this chapter to find a way to get rid of them once and for all, because they're just becoming a real pain now. So Remus returns from his monthly visits and he's like, I'll take care of it, go have fun. And so Harry finally gets a break from the girls and from Draco and just goes and hangs out with Ron for once. The Weasley twins kind of surprise them, reach out and grab them and hide them, and like, shut up. And they all see a cockatrice. Now, cockatrices have not shown up in the books, but they're a very traditional European form of dragon, and I really wanted them to be present in the story. I think they're a really cool kind of dragon, and I don't think they get enough attention, because most of the dragons that you see in media are either the four-legged winged dragons or the wyverns. You don't see a lot of the other kinds of dragons. There are a lot of different kinds of dragons in mythology, especially in European mythology. So I wanted to include a cockatrice kind of as part of that. In a weird way, it's part of the diversity idea of this fanfiction, but I wanted to include it. So we've got a cockatrice here, male cockatrice, who's running around with the chicks, with the baby cockatrices, looking for food, just having fun. And the boys, they have a theoretical understanding of cockatrices, and of course you've got Charlie, who's like, dragon, oh my god, and he's just having so much fun. But the point of this scene really is to have a moment of kind of boys being boys in an innocent way and not in a derogatory, actually sexist way. Just kind of boys being boys, having fun, and doing something a little bit dangerous, showing that the Weasleys really do have a bit of a Gryffindor streak in them, even though all of the Weasleys involved in this scene, they're not Gryffindors. You've got the Slytherin twins, and you've got the Hufflepuff Charlie, and then you've got Ron, who hasn't even been sorted yet. So you've got this interesting situation of the non-Gryffindors having fun in a Gryffindor way. So they're hiding from the cockatrices. There's a moment of Ron kind of protecting Harry a little bit, kind of doing that thing that people do whenever they like someone, of being a little bit overprotective and unnecessarily physical sometimes. So Ron's kind of protecting Harry, and then they come across a baby cockatrice, and Harry's immediate reaction is, oh my god, it's so cute, and Ron is like, don't touch it. So they have this run-in with a baby cockatrice, and it's meant to be humorous, it's meant to be comical, it's meant to be kind of a moment of showing Ron being more like cautious and strategic, and Harry just being such a cinnamon roll and just being so sweet and naive and kind-hearted in this moment, to really show that he does kind of have a Hufflepuff side of him that I've seen in the books. There was a comment, someone was like, I'd love to see a Hufflepuff Harry. Me too, for sure. I kind of like the idea of Harry starting off. I'm gonna reveal it a little bit now. I like the idea of Harry starting off as a Slytherin because of Chamber of Secrets. I just think it'd make Chamber of Secrets so much more compelling if Harry was in Slytherin during the course of it. And then him changing houses with each opportunity to change houses. So he'll go through 3 different houses. The question is which houses and what the order should be. For what I have planned for the series, it feels appropriate to have Harry start off in Slytherin until for books 1, 2, and 3, and then switch houses right before book 4. But the question is, which house should he switch to? I like the idea of him switching over to Ravenclaw, but he feels more like a Hufflepuff in books 4 and 5. Really, I don't know how to explain it. He feels more like a Hufflepuff in books 4 and 5, and more like a Ravenclaw in book 6 and 7, but I could totally see it the other way around, and I could also see him going Gryffindor for a short period of time in that. So I would love it if you guys would talk in the comments about which house you'd like him to be. I really like him being in Slytherin first, though, just because I feel like it would make Chamber of Secrets so much more compelling, and I feel like it would really cause some interesting drama in Prisoner of Azkaban as well. So I like the idea of him being in Slytherin first, but I'd love to know your opinions, your feelings about what house he should enter into starting book 4 and then starting book 6. So let me know in the comments below which ones, what your vote is, basically. I'm open to all 3 houses, and I am incorporating all 3 houses into Harry's personality in this book so that the door is open for all 3 of them. So let me know what you think, which house he should switch into in those. I do definitely want him to switch, though, so he'll only be a Slytherin for books 2 and 3, and then he'll switch houses to either Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, or Hufflepuff in book 4, and then he'll switch again in book 6. So let me know which house you think he should end up in, or, be in for a short period of time, and I'll take it under advisement whenever I'm planning the next, whenever we get to those books and I'm, planting the foreshadowing and everything like that for those. A bit of chatter about, like, Professor Kettleborn and Charlie has jumped onto the cockatrice and flown off and has not yet returned, and I'm sure he's loving that, absolutely. I love the fact that I get to actually use Charlie as a character because I dropped his age by 1 year, so rather than him already being graduated from Hogwarts, he's going to be at Hogwarts with the other students, which is going to be really fun. I love the idea of him, having stuff going on in the first year with Norbert and everything like that. I love the idea of having him there, and this is a little bit of kind of foreshadowing of that element of the first book, the Norbert, who's actually Norberta. Rose has a moment where she's talking to Harry, who's getting ready for the festival, and she tells him outright that both Draco and Ron have feelings for him. He'd never even suspected this before because he thought everyone was just teasing him, but Rose he respects completely and he fully trusts her, so when she says they both have feelings for him, he 100% believes it. And so he decides, okay, this is a problem. I've got these 2 girls who won't leave me alone. Now both of my friends have feelings for me. I've got to deal with this. And this is a moment of him being cunning and being showing his Slytherin colors a little bit, because he's kind of manipulating his friends to get together and leave him alone, so that he doesn't have to deal with romance when he's dealing with everything else. As you found out earlier in this chapter, he's kind of overwhelmed at the moment with everything that everyone's trying to teach him and everything everyone's trying to get him involved in and everything. He's overwhelmed already with his responsibilities as the heir of the estate. He can't really deal with dating right now. So that's what's going on with this, and he decides here that he's going to hook up the girls with the boys so that he can be free of them all, basically, and focus on his schooling, because that's the thing that really worries him, and that's what he's really concerned about right now. There's an interesting moment that I integrated here of the main family, the Lee family, the Lee clan, kind of taking their position at the head of the head of the village by riding in carriages up the mountain to the festival platform. I included this because it just feels feudal, and that feels appropriate for the time period, and it feels appropriate for the setting, and it feels like it would be something that would happen in an environment like this. So I included that bit here. They're on these kind of levitating pelicans. They go up to the festival platform. Aunt Mayling gives a speech, and then Harry has to use a bit of blood magic to help cultivate the fields, basically, to get them ready for the winter so they can be re-harvested and everything like that. And this is another moment of him using his blood magic on the estate and really showing his connection to the lands themselves as the Potter heir. This is something that has not happened since James died. So it's very important that this happen, that this kind of refreshing of the land happen for the sake of the crops and for the sake of the village, and it really shows how important Harry as the Potter heir is to the estate at large. At dinner, Harry begins matchmaking. He kind of plays up Ron's bravery in the Cockatrice incident to Elizabeth because he knows that she's the adventurous one. That's the reputation that she has. And then he pairs off Cho and Zhang together because they're both more intellectually minded. They're both more like into that kind of thing. So this pairing off is him dealing with all of their feelings kind of at once, kind of redirecting all of them away from him, so that he doesn't have to put up with it and deal with it. And after this matchmaking situation happens, the girls kind of give up on Harry, finally. We don't really see, you won't see them kind of fawning over Harry anymore after this double courtship happens. But neither of those relationships are going to last, obviously. So that's not going to continue on. Once they get to Hogwarts, they're both couples are going to break up pretty quickly. So it's a short-term, like, first romance kind of situation, very casual, very chaste situation between both couples. But it's Harry's solution to get the girls to leave him alone and to get the guys to redirect their attentions to someone else so that it doesn't jeopardize their friendships. Harry heads out and meets up with Lord Malfoy, who's heading back to the estate, and they have a chat about the blood magic that's going on. This whole scene is there for foreshadowing purposes for later on in the book, and in the series at large. So Lord Malfoy talks about the kind of development of blood in pureblood families and where it comes from and everything. He says that purebloods kind of go astray if they cultivate magic too harshly, too focusedly, and sometimes that leads to magical creatures. So like merpeople and centaurs and werewolves and whatnot come from the relationship, comes from this kind of virus that happens in the magic where it's too concentrated and it takes on a new form through transfiguration. Now, this is a foreshadowing. As we know from canon, James was an animagus. He could turn himself into a stag, and his favorite subject was transfigurations. Now, I like the idea of James having issues once that happens with how easy it was for him to become an animagus. Having issues as he gets older of the magic kind of starting to take on a life of its own a little bit and starting to trigger that change. And that being kind of the reason why he was not concerned about marrying a Muggleborn and having a non-pureblood child, having a half-blood child, because to him it was kind of cleansing the palate. And that's what Malfoy is talking about here, Lord Malfoy. He's talking about how that's why a lot of the other pureblood families didn't put up a fuss about James marrying a Muggleborn, because unlike usually where all the pureblood, obsession would be like, no, you're not allowed to do that, you're dirtying the bloodlines and everything like that. In this case, it was a matter of you're preventing a catastrophic deconstruction of the pureblood work by letting in a little bit of normal blood, I guess. I don't know how to phrase it. Instead of marrying another pureblood and risking the child being born as something problematic, being born a magical creature. However, the curse that's in Harry's body is kind of becoming the same problem. It's kind of overcoming the fact that Lily's blood has prevented this catastrophic devolution of Harry's pureblood heritage. So as a result, there's this kind of concern that will remain present for the rest of the series, that Harry is too powerful, and if he were to ever have a child, for example, there is a risk that that child may not be human, because there's too much magic in him at this point. The fact that he's a seer, once that gets revealed in the 5th book, that's going to be even more problematic. People are going to be like, oh shit, this is a sign. This is a sign that the pureblood, the Potter family has pushed too far. They've gone too far down the passive magic route. And now there's a risk for them. So that's why this scene is here. It's for foreshadowing, not just for this book, but for the entire series. And it is to raise that concern that Harry's natural heritage, even before the curse, was problematic. And that may be why James was kind of reluctant to be engaged with or interested in any pureblood girls, and he was really only interested in Lily. Not just because she was a Muggleborn, I want to make that clear. He did have a natural, actual connection to her. But the reason why he never had any qualms about her being a Muggleborn is because he thought that could help. That could be a good thing. So he never had this like moment of, oh, I really like her, I'm really attracted to her, but she's a Muggleborn, so I can't be with her. He never had that kind of Romeo and Juliet situation, where like her house was a problem or anything like that. Because this happened, because of the situation with his blood and his family. So that's why this is here. It's to help explain some of that, and to help foreshadow what's going to happen later in the books. I do have in mind that this will come in handy in the last book, but I'm not going to reveal how just yet. All right, that's it for this chapter. Again, I'm sorry about that delay. You can blame my cat for it. It shouldn't be a problem going forward. I should have the next video up either Thursday, it might be up Friday, just because of this delay, just because I had to stop and refilm all of this and put it up in 24 hours. I'm filming this the day before you guys see it, so literally I've got 21 hours to finish filming this, editing it, and posting it. But I've already posted the chapter, so at least you have that. I will see you guys next time with a brand new chapter, with all brand new scenes. So that'll be fun, and I hope you enjoy. Bye!